How's it going, guys? I'm Maitias with Apopka Marine. I'm our head technician over here. We have this engine and boat here. It is a G3, 40 horse, 2012. I believe it did come power match, so this engine probably was installed originally on the boat. Unfortunately, we do have a problem with it. We're getting some water in the oil, so we're in the process. Well, I'm in the process of taking this head off here. I believe there's going to be a head gasket that's leaking. Uh, and this is kind of just the process that I use here. Yeah, kind of already begun this, but I put the engine in time. I kind of got the harness and everything removed from the back here. I got our fuel system disconnected about as far as I need to go. I'm in the process of taking this intake off here because it is attached to the head. The intake goes into, the exhaust goes out of, so that's one of the things that we'll have to remove in order to take this head off here. I also do have the power disconnected from the engine, just in case my screwdriver touches anything or nothing goes wrong. I don't have any sparks or any fireworks happening.
And what would cause something like that to happen? Why would the water mix with the fuel?
Well, once the head gasket is actually blown, the head gasket actually separates the cylinder to the cooling system of the engine. They kind of like are in unison. Once we get a little bit further in here, we should be able to take a look at that, and you'll be able to see how those passages kind of work together and how they're all arranged and everything. Bigger.
That thing's on there.
Yeah, I did a bigger rack. Hopefully it all doesn't kind of spill out.
Now, is this someone that came in with that issue? Did they seek you out saying, "Hey, I'm having a problem here. I don't know what's going on"?
Yeah, they did have some sort of run issue. They brought it in for a 100-hour service, just thinking that maybe that there was some sort of issue with pretty much just the engine running wise. But definitely, you can definitely see here, since we've actually ran it, how white and milky this oil actually is. That's kind of a good indication that there's a lot of water in there.
I see.
They're very milky.
So you would say that's not good.
No. Yeah, I'm sure that's not good at all. You can see it's kind of changing colors there. I didn't run the engine because we kind of just determined that this problem was here. We didn't want to run it any longer than we actually had to. But in reality, you would run the engine to kind of get all that stuff all mixed up and any type of debris or anything that's inside of the engine to kind of loosen up and flow out of there with the oil. And that's pretty much good enough at the moment. probably let this drain the entire night into tomorrow just to make sure that any of that stuff is out of there. We will have to kind of like flush that oil system out. We'll run it, change the oil filter. I will, yeah, pretty much run it, and then we'll have to do an oil change after all this, and we'll just double check that we don't have any water in the system. So,
What are some things that people could do to their boats to ensure that this doesn't happen to them?
so that's a good question because I'm not sure that there actually is any preparations. These 40 horses, we can hook them up to the computer, but it won't tell us how many times the engine's been overheated. But an overheat several times could possibly be maybe cause of this issue. It's overheated several times, and a lot of times aluminum expands and contracts with heat. So it's pretty much like a surface that's opening and closing and opening and closing, and the more that happens, the more of a risk you have of that gasket failing. In my opinion, it's kind of the way that I just look at that situation. I do have these bins and kind of stuff laid out here. If you want to take a look at this, for removing the intake, I'll have this individual bin here, kind of just set up for the intake itself. I have one that I have set up for tools. Any of the larger parts, I lay out this panel here, so I can kind of just like set them there, keep everything organized. Zip ties as well. That's gonna help me tie up my harness and just pretty much keep everything out of the way, so it doesn't end up damaged in this removal process. I lost my 12, so that's what pocket. Oops. These things are not the easiest to get out of here.
Yeah, it's a tight squeeze.
Let me see. Standard 12 feet on there. Sometimes Snap-on isn't the best bet. I know a lot of people like using impacts and stuff to remove all this, but it's a really good idea to use hand tools just so you can kind of get a feel for what's going on. If it is super tight, or if you're going to over tighten it or anything, you won't be able to feel that through any type of power tool. intake. You can actually even see just a little bit of residue here, or actually we do have some water that's actually came back through the intake. This crankcase hose here, which hooks up here, and if there's any type of crankcase pressure or fumes, that actually vents it back through the intake for the engine to try and reburn instead of just wasting it back through the exhaust. If you look in here, you can also see that we also have some water that was kind of starting to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And that also isn't a good idea because water, unlike fuel, doesn't compress. So once water gets in the cylinders, you do also have a chance of the engine hydrolocking, which could also cause more mechanical damage. Not really gasket-wise, but it also can cause any type of like piston damage, spark plugs, cranks, rods, any type of those internal moving components. Once they get under a lot of pressure, something's going to give. Now we got the fuel guy here to pump the oil. So this is a ratchet that I actually like using a lot. I think it's a gear wrench. It does swivels all these ways here. So any of these like weird positions to where a flat 90 wrench could possibly work, being able to swivel just a little bit more gives me a lot more of a radius to be able to turn those. These valve covers do hold oil, so I'll just stuff a rag under here to try and avoid making a big mess everywhere. At least we'll have something to catch a little bit of that oil. The reason it's being forced off like that is because these fuel pumps are actually crank fed. So any of the function of this fuel pump is timed off with the crank. So in in a second here I'll be able to show you where it's actually contacting the spot that's on the camshaft. Camshaft, not crankshaft, but it does contact that, and that's actually what generates the vacuum for the fuel pump. Just get this guy out of here. That does not look the greatest. Once this water gets in contact with oil, for some reason it starts to coagulate as well, and it kind of just like sticks to stuff. So before this all goes back together, I will take all these gaskets, seals, and pretty much the fuel pump off of here, and I'll make sure that I clean all of this oil out of here. Just make sure everything's good. It's also important you take your time at these steps too, and look for any other type of damage that you might have actually caused or have going on in here. Just kind of look, see, and just make sure that everything's kind of still intact before you start pulling more stuff off. See where it's ratchet will be.